When we talk about attraction, many people believe it is something based only on appearance or something we create by constantly trying to make another person interested in us. But the deeper truth is that attraction is not created by chasing, convincing, or working harder to gain someone's attention. It comes from becoming someone who naturally creates curiosity and connection. And the first step begins with one important change. Stop placing all your focus on him and return that attention back to yourself. The moment you stop trying to control his feelings and start rebuilding your own confidence, you begin to regain your strength. This is not about ignoring him, pretending you do not care, or creating distance just to get a reaction. It is about realizing that real attraction grows when it comes from a place of inner security. It comes from someone who feels comfortable with who they are and does not depend on another person's attention to feel worthy. The biggest mistake people make when trying to reconnect with someone is that their energy becomes focused on fear and uncertainty. They start thinking, how can I make him think about me? How can I make him remember the good moments? How can I bring back what we had? But when your mind becomes completely focused on someone who has stepped away, you slowly lose your own center. You begin responding to his actions instead of creating your own direction. And when someone is constantly chasing, they stop showing the confidence that originally made them attractive. Pay attention to the people who naturally draw others toward them. They are not constantly searching for approval. They are not desperately trying to prove their value. They are usually the people who are deeply involved in their own lives, building themselves, following their goals, and enjoying their own journey. Their presence feels different because they are not trying to capture attention. They naturally create it through confidence and peace within themselves. Now think about your own situation. If he has become distant, if his messages have changed, or if the connection no longer feels the same as before, the answer is not to make him the center of your thoughts. The answer is to bring your energy back home to yourself. And this is where the real transformation begins. The shift happens when you start reconnecting with the person you were before you met him. The person who had dreams, interests, goals, and a life that existed beyond the relationship. It means returning to the activities that made you feel excited and alive. It means taking care of yourself, improving your mindset, strengthening your confidence, and investing in the things that help you grow. It means remembering that your happiness was never supposed to depend on one person staying or leaving. Your life had meaning before him, and it still has meaning without needing anyone else's approval. Here is something many people do not realize. The moment you stop making someone the main source of your emotional energy, people can often feel that difference. They notice when the person who was always available, always waiting, and always trying suddenly begins moving with more confidence and independence. The energy changes, the dynamic changes. You become less focused on being chosen and more focused on choosing yourself, and that is powerful. Human behavior shows that people are naturally more interested in what feels meaningful and valuable. This does not mean you should create games, pretend to be unavailable, or manipulate someone's emotions. It means understanding that constant availability without balance can sometimes reduce appreciation. When someone sees that you have your own world, your own purpose, and your own confidence, they experience you differently. You are no longer someone waiting for their attention. You become someone whose presence adds value. And this is the part most people overlook. The goal is not to make him chase you. The goal is to become so connected to yourself that you no longer need to chase anyone. Because when you stop abandoning yourself for someone else, you become the kind of person who naturally attracts deeper respect, stronger connection, and healthier love. When something feels limited, when it carries its own value, and when it does not rely on another person to decide its worth, it naturally becomes more attractive. The reason this approach works is because it is not about pretending or creating a fake image. It comes from a real transformation in the way you think, act, and carry yourself. If you only make these changes because you want him to react, notice you, or come back, the energy behind it will still be focused on seeking approval. Deep down, you will still be waiting for his validation. The real power comes when you choose to invest in yourself because you genuinely believe you deserve growth, happiness, and peace, not to make him jealous, not to make him feel guilty, not to prove that he made a mistake, but because your own life deserves your attention. There is a powerful idea in human behavior called the scarcity principle. It explains that people often value things more when they feel rare, unique, or not easily available. Think about something exclusive, something people cannot easily access, or someone who carries themselves with calm confidence and independence. They do not have to demand attention. They do not have to convince people of their importance. Their presence naturally creates interest. Now ask yourself something important. Which version of you feels more powerful? The version that sits around waiting, wondering, checking, analyzing every small sign and hoping someone chooses you, or the version that is fully engaged with life, growing, improving, enjoying the moment, and carrying an energy that naturally attracts people? Because here is the surprising truth. The more you try to convince someone of your value, the less they are able to truly feel it. But the moment you stop proving and start living from a place of confidence, something changes. Your energy becomes different. Your presence becomes stronger. If you truly want to reconnect with someone, the first step is not trying to become unforgettable to them. The first step is becoming deeply connected to yourself again. This does not mean you suddenly stop caring. It does not mean the person never mattered. It simply means you stop placing your entire emotional world in someone else's hands. You begin caring about yourself enough that you no longer need to convince someone to see your worth. And that is often the very thing that creates attraction. So if you are sitting there asking, how can I make him realize what he lost? How can I make him understand how much this affected me? The answer is not hidden inside another message, another explanation, or another attempt to get his attention. The answer is found in changing your focus. When you rebuild yourself, when you become confident, peaceful, and fulfilled, people can feel that difference. They notice when someone who once seemed focused only on them begins creating a life of their own, and that is when curiosity can return. You cannot force someone to recognize your value. You cannot control another person's feelings, but you can become someone whose value is impossible to overlook. And this is where one of the biggest shifts happens. If you want to reconnect with someone without chasing them, you have to learn how to communicate in a way that creates curiosity instead of pressure. Many people misunderstand attraction and believe it comes from constantly showing interest, proving loyalty, explaining feelings, or reminding someone about everything they are missing. But real connection is not created only through words. It is created through emotions and experiences. It comes from the way someone feels when they interact with you. Here is where many people accidentally push someone further away. When they sense distance, their natural reaction is to move closer immediately. They try to close the emotional gap. They send more messages. They explain themselves more. They try to bring back old memories and recreate the connection they once had. But sometimes the more pressure you add, the more the other person feels the need to step back, because emotional closeness cannot be forced. Think about a time when someone tried extremely hard to get your attention. Maybe someone kept messaging you when you needed space. Maybe someone became too invested too quickly before a natural connection had the chance to grow. How did that feel? It may have felt overwhelming. It may have created resistance instead of attraction. That is because people naturally respond better to freedom than pressure. When someone feels pushed, they often pull away. When they feel space and curiosity, they become more open. So if you want to rebuild attraction, stop trying to recreate the past exactly as it was. Instead, focus on creating a different emotional experience. Let the connection feel fresh. Let it feel natural. Let the other person become curious about the new energy you bring. The secret is learning the power of subtle communication. Instead of chasing answers, you create moments that invite interest. Instead of forcing someone to feel something, you allow them the space to discover their own feelings. And this is the part many people miss. Attraction grows when someone feels drawn toward you, not when they feel pushed toward you. Imagine you unexpectedly see this person again, or you exchange a simple message. Instead of sending a heavy, emotional statement like, "I miss you so much. Do you ever think about us?" You create a lighter moment that sparks curiosity, something playful, something that opens a door without demanding they walk through it immediately. For example, you might say, "You won't believe what just reminded me of you." Then you leave space. You allow their curiosity to respond. You are no longer chasing the conversation. You are allowing the conversation to come towards you. And that small shift can completely change the emotional dynamic. They begin to move closer, they start participating in the conversation. And when you finally reply, you keep the energy relaxed and natural. Maybe you bring up a funny memory. Maybe you share a small inside joke. Maybe you create a simple moment that feels enjoyable. But the important thing is that you are not overwhelming them with intense emotions or trying to explain everything you feel. You are simply creating a small interaction that reminds them of the experience of being around you. Because here is something many people forget. What someone truly misses about another person is not only their presence. It is the emotion connected to them. It is the laughter, the comfort, the excitement, the feeling of discovering something new. It is the unique energy that made time together feel different from everything else. That is what you want to bring back, not through trying harder, not through chasing, but through becoming someone who naturally creates a positive emotional experience. Think about what makes a great movie impossible to stop watching. It is not when every detail is revealed immediately. It is not when the ending is obvious from the beginning. A powerful story keeps you interested because of the mystery, the emotions, the questions, and the moments that make you want to know what happens next. Attraction works in a similar way. When someone already knows every thought you have, every feeling you carry, and exactly how much you want them, there is no room for curiosity. But when you create healthy space, when you allow moments of mystery, when you let someone wonder about you, their mind naturally begins to reconnect with you. And this is where many people misunderstand the process. This is not about pretending, manipulating, or creating fake distance. It is about understanding that connection needs room to breathe. People often appreciate what they have the opportunity to discover. When someone feels like they are building a connection with you, when they experience small moments that make them curious and interested, they become more emotionally involved. That is a natural part of human behavior. The beautiful thing is that when you communicate from confidence instead of insecurity, the entire experience changes for you too. You stop sitting around waiting for a reply. You stop feeling nervous about every small action. You begin enjoying your own life while allowing attraction to develop naturally. So if you want to reconnect with someone without constantly chasing them, remember this simple truth. Less pressure creates more space for attraction to grow. The less you try to force someone to understand your value, the more they have the opportunity to recognize it themselves. The moment someone starts becoming curious about you again, starts thinking about you again, and starts wondering what has changed, that is when the emotional balance begins to shift. Attraction was never about convincing someone that you are valuable. It is about becoming so secure in your own value that you no longer need to convince anyone. When you lead with confidence instead of fear, when you move with self-respect instead of desperation, people can feel the difference. And that difference is what creates a natural pull. One of the biggest misunderstandings about attraction is the belief that you have to constantly perform or take specific actions to make someone desire you. Many people think they need the perfect message, the perfect appearance, or the perfect situation to create interest. But lasting attraction is not built only through external actions. It comes from something deeper. It comes from your mindset, your presence, and the way you carry yourself when no one is watching. It comes from the quiet confidence that makes someone notice you differently, without even understanding exactly why. And here is the surprising part. The harder you try to bring someone back by proving yourself, the more likely they are to feel that you are seeking their approval. When someone senses that you are waiting for their attention or depending on their reaction, they may begin to see you as someone trying to gain their interest instead of someone naturally deserving of it. This is where many people become trapped. They believe that if they just explain more, show more effort, or prove how much they care, the other person will suddenly realize their mistake. But attraction does not grow because someone is trying harder. Attraction often grows through emotional space. It grows in the moments when someone has the chance to notice your absence, reflect on your presence, and recognize the value you brought into their life. Not because you demanded it, not because you reminded them repeatedly, but because you became someone whose energy was meaningful. This is why the first step to reconnecting with someone is not chasing their attention. It is rebuilding your own world. Instead of trying to pull them back into your life, create a life that feels so fulfilling that your energy naturally becomes attractive. Think about it this way. People are influenced by energy, not just appearance or words. They are drawn toward confidence, passion, happiness, and emotional strength. When you become completely focused on someone who is not showing up for you, your attention becomes trapped in worries and questions. You spend your energy wondering what they are thinking, what they are feeling, and how you can make them respond. But that energy could be invested into becoming stronger, happier, and more connected with yourself. And this is the shift that changes everything. The moment you stop trying to control their feelings and start building your own happiness, you become different. Your conversations become lighter. Your presence becomes calmer. Your confidence becomes visible. People can sense when someone is no longer trying to be chosen, but has started choosing themselves. And that is the kind of energy that creates real attraction, because the goal was never to become someone who needs to be chased. The goal is to become someone who knows their worth so deeply that the right people naturally recognize it. The moment you begin directing that energy back toward yourself, your entire perspective starts to change. Your focus becomes different. Your mindset becomes stronger. Now let's look at what this really means in everyday life. Redirecting your energy means investing your attention into the parts of your life that make you feel alive. Your goals, your interests, your personal development, your friendships, your health, your dreams, your purpose. It means becoming so deeply involved in creating a meaningful life that you no longer feel the urge to constantly wonder if they are noticing you. Because something powerful happens when you do this. You stop living from a place of emptiness and start living from a place of fullness. You move from being someone who waits for another person to confirm your value to someone who already knows they are valuable. And people can feel that difference. They can sense when someone is carrying confidence instead of searching for reassurance. They notice when someone is peaceful instead of desperate for attention. And this is where the biggest shift begins. When someone sees that you are growing, improving, and enjoying your life without depending on them, it changes the way they see you. The image they once had of you, the version of you that was always available and always trying to gain their attention, starts disappearing. In its place, they see something unexpected, a person who has changed, a person who has become more confident, a person who creates curiosity. And that curiosity can be powerful because people naturally become interested in things that feel valuable and not easily accessible. When you become less focused on them and more committed to yourself, you create a sense of distance that allows them to reflect. It makes them think about what they may have overlooked. This is why the most attractive people are not always the ones who are considered the most perfect or the ones who give the most attention. They are usually the ones who have their own identity. They have excitement in their lives. They have goals they are chasing. They have a sense of purpose that does not disappear when someone leaves. They create the feeling that being part of their world is something special. And that is the energy you want to develop. Not by pretending, not by trying to control someone's emotions, but by genuinely becoming invested in yourself. Now, some people hear this and immediately think, so should I just ignore them? No, that is not the message. This is not about acting cold, creating fake distance, or pretending you have no feelings. It is about reaching a place where your happiness is no longer controlled by their attention. It is about understanding that your value exists whether they recognize it or not. And the interesting thing is, when you truly believe that, people often start recognizing it more clearly. Because there is something deeply attractive about someone who respects themselves, protects their peace, and refuses to accept less than they deserve. One of the biggest things that changes someone's perspective is seeing that you are not stuck waiting for them. They notice when you are moving forward. They notice when you are building yourself. They notice when your life continues to become better, and that is when the dynamic begins to shift. So if you want to reconnect with him without chasing, the answer is simple. Stop chasing. Stop trying to convince him of what he lost. Stop trying to force him to understand your value. Instead, take all that energy and place it back into yourself. Become the version of you that feels confident, fulfilled, and impossible to overlook. Because when you do that, the outcome changes completely. It is no longer about whether he chooses you again. It becomes about whether he still matches the person you have become. And that is a much more powerful position to be in. One of the biggest mistakes people make when they want to rebuild attraction is believing the answer is found in external actions. They think the perfect message, the perfect appearance, or the perfect behavior will suddenly make someone feel differently. But lasting attraction does not come from performing a role. It comes from presence. It comes from the way you carry yourself, the emotions you create, and the feeling someone experiences when they are around you. Even more importantly, it comes from the feeling they have when you are no longer right there. And one of the most misunderstood parts of attraction is the power of mystery. Not mystery as a trick, not mystery as a game, but mystery as the natural result of being a person who continues to grow, change, and build a life beyond one relationship. Think about why the beginning of a connection often feels so exciting. It is because there is discovery, there are questions, there are new things to learn about each other. You do not know every detail, you do not know every reaction. There is an element of curiosity that keeps the connection interesting. But many people make a mistake once they become emotionally attached. They become too predictable. They become constantly available. They start sharing everything, explaining everything, and making their entire world revolve around one person. Slowly, they stop being someone who creates curiosity and become someone who is simply expected to be there. And when something becomes guaranteed, people sometimes stop appreciating its value. This is why mystery can completely change the way someone experiences you. When someone expects an immediate response and you take time because you are genuinely living your life, it creates a different impression. When they realize there are parts of your world they no longer have complete access to, they become more curious. When they thought they understood everything about you and then discover new sides of you, their attention naturally increases. But remember, this is not about making someone anxious or trying to control their emotions. It is about building a life so full that you naturally become less available because you are focused on meaningful things. Ask yourself this question. When was the last time you did something exciting just because it made you happy? When was the last time you created a new experience without thinking about how someone else would react? Because the more you expand your own world, the more interesting you become. Mystery is not about hiding who you are. It is about becoming more of who you are. It is about developing new passions, exploring new experiences, creating new stories, and becoming someone whose life has many different layers. And here is the beautiful part. When you become this person, you do not need to chase attention. You naturally become someone people think about, someone whose presence stays in their memory, someone they become curious to understand again. Imagine no longer delaying your life while waiting for someone to notice you. Imagine not posting things just to get a reaction. Imagine simply living, growing, and enjoying your own journey. You become less available, not because you planned it as a strategy, but because your life has become too meaningful to pause. And that is when people start noticing the difference. They begin wondering what has changed. They begin paying attention. They begin seeing the person you were becoming all along. They start asking themselves questions they never considered before. They begin wondering if they truly understood your value the way they once believed they did. And that is where the emotional shift begins. Because here is the reality. People often do not deeply appreciate something when they believe it will always be available. They become more aware of its importance when they recognize it could be gone. When you create a sense of mystery, not by acting distant or pretending to be someone else, but by genuinely building a life that does not revolve around them, you become someone who continues to be discovered instead of someone who becomes predictable. And that is what keeps curiosity alive. That is what makes someone want to reconnect. So if you want to rebuild attraction without chasing, stop showing up as the same version of yourself who was always waiting, always explaining, and always trying to prove your importance. Instead, become someone who is constantly growing, learning, improving, and creating new experiences. Not because you want to capture his attention, not because you want to make him feel something, but because you deserve to become a person who feels inspiring, exciting, and valuable to yourself first. And when you become that person, others naturally begin to notice. One of the biggest misunderstandings people have when trying to reconnect with someone is believing they need to persuade that person to want them again. They think if they send the perfect message, say the perfect words, change their appearance, or show enough effort, the other person will suddenly feel differently. But attraction does not work through pressure or persuasion. It is not something you can logically explain someone into feeling. Attraction is emotional. It happens through experiences, feelings, and the way someone perceives your presence. And here is the important part.